Okay, all right. Here's what we're going to do. So, Ayin Ham and Aleph, we're towards about 2/3 of the way down. I don't recall if we did this Gemara carefully, didn't do the Gemara carefully.
So I have right down to the word
Shachto. Okay.
But we could review.
So we'll just run through it quickly and then we'll continue. I'd like to, what I said to before, I'd like to learn the Gemaras until the Mishnah on Ayin Hey Amud Bet. When then, time permitting, we'll either start it this week or next week. We'll talk about the chilazon and some of the other laws and issues about sod, about trapping. And the reason I want to do that is because in the middle of next week we're going to Eretz Yisrael for 3 weeks. So I want to know that I finished it. So we've gotten to the end of a place, because then we'll come back. We'll start with a different topic completely. So, but just a reminder, we are here next week.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the middle of Ayin Ham and Aleph. It's tzad tzvi. This is about catching a tzvi. And some pointed out that the word in the midbar wasn't really a tzvi. It probably was the tchashim, these multicolored different types of rams, type of animals of some sort, which we use. But it's really catching any kind of animal. And that's one example. And the Gemara says there's a different example as well. Atzad chilazon v'apotzo ina chayav alachas. If you catch the chilazon, which we'll spend time next week and talk about what it is, a fish or a snail, how do you catch it? Potzo means to squeeze it, according to most Mefarshim, so that you're squeezing out what the Mefarshim call the dam, which may not be actually the blood, maybe some other body fluids. That is what has the coloration or the precursors of the coloration that will create the tcheles. So eina chayav alachas. You're only going to be chayav for one, which is going to be the Isser of Tzeda. But Psiya, which is squeezing it out, you're not going to be chayav for. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, chayav shtayim. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, there's actually another issue you can do. Sometimes you can do, you strike out the bat much quicker than you think. You can get 2 averos here, which they are. Shohin Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Psiya bechal disha. That disha is threshing, and Ptsiya is squeezing out. So anytime that you're going to unload something from what it is within, it's going to be considered an extension, or in this case, a tolda of disha. Right? Dash is stomping on it. Right? Dash is when you start. What you do when you stomp on it, you're breaking out the kernel from the stalk that's below it. So that's and we saw this once upon a time where if we threw a clod of dirt at a palm tree, right? You were going to be chayav for kotzer and also for disha, because somehow this was unloading the dates from the parts that were around them, whatever they were. Okay. So this Rabbi Yehuda therefore says you'll get 2 avos malachos, or 2 toldos probably, or 1 av and 1 tolda. And Amrulo, the Chachamim said it's only 1. Ain't Ptsiya b'chlal disha. So there you can't include Ptsiya is not part of disha, because it's not the same thing as separating the body fluid from the body. It's not the same as taking the tfu away from the stalk itself, from the chaff and stalk. So the Gemara says, "V'lechayiv nami mishum netilas neshama." You should also be chayiv for netilas neshama, which is really shochet. One of the surim, one of the lamites malachos is called shochet, which is right before it's number 26. It's after you catch the tzvi. Right, the next level is going to be shochet. So shochet includes, by the way, not just real shchita, what we call halachic shchita. Shochet includes any time that you kill something. All right. I'm not sure if Chazal would view kinim like we had as really living animals, right? For shchita or killing, but surely something as small as something as large as a chalazon, which is not microscopic and not tiny, would be considered.
And an ant wouldn't be.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Things you can.
Yeah, the reason about I mentioned about kinim is kinim, of course, is very unique that the Chartumim couldn't create kinim. Right, and it seems to be something different.
Below, Medrash says below a barley size.
Right, so they're tiny things, and I do believe that Chazal, as well as were up to and current in their science, the current science of their day, which did believe in abiogenesis, that things created by themselves. Gemara talks about, we had at the end of Chagiga, the salamander, right? Okay. But specifically, anything that's really this small, they didn't know where it came from, including flies and so forth and so on, flies and bugs and all those. At any rate, so let's just come back to this. So therefore, separating the body fluid from the body is not the same as separating the wheat from the chaff or the kernel from the chaff itself. And you can really appreciate it. It's a little different. By the way, just to kind of precurse or preempt what we're going to do about the chilazon, if you say the chilazon is actually the snail, part of this is not just squeezing the fluid out; it's actually breaking through the shell. Okay, we found those archaeological specimens. Amar Rava, my time with the Rabbanan. So why is it going to be so different? After all, squeezing is squeezing and separating. Squeezing is separating, and separating is separating. So my time with the Rabbanan, kasavra ain't disha ela gedule karka. So there's a rule that this only applies to things that grow from the ground, not living things, not inanimate objects. That makes sense because every melacha, at least in an av and a tolda, has to mimic the original melacha, the original av that there was. So you could extend it to something else, but it has to be something that still has to be the gedule karka. Okay, so that's why we had the example on Gimel that about throwing the clod of dirt at the palm tree, right? And the dates that pop off, you could be chayav for not just ktsira, but for disha as well, because that's a gedule karka that's growing from the ground. So Gemara says l'chayv nam mishun tzilas neshama. What about killing the animal? So Rav Yochanan shepatzo meis. So the first answer Rav Yochanan says is you actually are squeezing it while the animal is dead. The animal is expired already. Therefore, you did not know. So what does that mean? So didn't you kill it, right? I mean, if the animal is dead, so if the animal is dead, who did it? So the answer is it looks like you didn't really do it b'yadayim. Okay, you caught the animal and somehow it tried, and Tosas kind of seems to say that this is an animal that thrashes around. It's not clear that Tosas did not understand it to be a snail, and therefore it kills itself quicker than you would have killed it. By its very thrashing, it tires itself out. It's not something that would make an easy pet. Okay, that's part of what Tosas tries in his discussion. So, and then the Gemara says, well, that's one answer is that you already died before you got to doing it, or maybe you pulled it up dead. It's not clear. And Rava Ma'afilotema Shapatzuchai Mesasik who eats on the Tilas Neshama. No, you're really not intending to do this. It's called Melacha Sheino Tzrichel. Not Melacha Sheino Tzrichel. Davar Sheino Miskavin. It's called Davar Sheino Miskavin. You didn't really want to do it. So therefore, you're not chayiv. And the Gemara says, that even if you didn't intend it, if it's a natural and required outcome of what you do, you're going to be chayiv. So the Gemara says, well, shiny hacha, the kamadisle neshama tvei nichale. The more that the animal is alive, the more the better off it is for you. And therefore, not only, yes, it may be a psik resha, the animal will die, but you don't want it to die. So in other words, the rule is, if I intend to do something, I'm responsible for what I intend to do. If I didn't intend to do something, but it will happen automatically, then I am chayev, unless I really don't want it to occur. It's called psik reisha lo nichale. Psik reisha lo nichale is very complicated, because what do you really want, what don't you really want, right? For example, without getting too much into a discussion about triggering light sensors, because there probably is really not an issue. I think one day, because all the poskim are going to say that it's okay because you really can't live without triggering sensors. But what's the issue of triggering the sensor? You didn't intend to do it. It's the davar she'eino miskaven. You walk by. You walk by the bank door, and the bank door slides open. So it's the davar she'eino miskaven. So you say, well, the answer is you are chayev because it's a davar she'eino miskaven, but it's psik reisha. If you walk in front of the door or walk in front of the Sobi's door on Shabbos, it's going to open up.
And you know it's going to open.
And you know it's going to open. And it must. And no, not only you know it's going to open, it must open. It must open. So you say, well, I don't really want it to open. I'm not going to Sobi's. I don't want it to open. I don't want the bank door to open. And the answer is that's not really true. You do want the bank door to open and close because if you ever come to use the bank machine, right, you want to know that the bank is closed and you can get in and get out. You don't want this to just be locked. You're going to come to the bank machine on early Sunday morning and it's closed. You're going to want to go to Sobeys. You want the door to open. So even though now you don't want the door to go open or the light to go on, so forth, you really do want it to go on.
Does it matter that you don't really know what point it goes on? In other words, you can walk a little bit, it'll go.
What really matters is you're not really doing a melacha. this is not the same as trying to pulling out the chila zone and it will die. Right. The question is, what have you really done? Right. First of all, what have you done? What have you really triggered? You've done in such a way that it's a kalachiyat. It's not the normal way of doing it.
Friday night when you go by garages, you see the lights
goes
on.
Yes, I'm saying and not only that, you're also going to be you're now a principal character under surveillance cameras. So when they roll the video and see what happens, it will come up. Right? The surveillance cameras everywhere. Surveillance cameras everywhere. We don't even know. Right? So I mean, you don't even know where these things are. There was someone told me there was an accident outside the next to the bayit in the the apartment building a couple of weeks ago. No, not the conservatory. The Sameach building, right? So and it was Erev Shabbos. So they pulled out the surveillance video from the apartment building to see how it happened. So I mean, you don't even know where these things are. So I guarantee if you're walking to shul, you're part of that surveillance video. There's surveillance videos all over. So what does that mean? So you didn't do anything. You're right, you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything either when you walked by the door. All I'm saying, it's a very complicated thing. There are surely heterim. I'm not saying you should try this at home. You should try to disable this. But if you do turn on, you walk down the street and the light pops on, or you walk by something and something happens, don't suddenly say you got to fast an extra tinus.
The video runs by itself, but that.
Yeah, but you've become an image on whatever how am I even sure these things work?
And
Right.
fridge doors.
Fridge doors.
That's a different.
So that's more complicated. The fridge doors are actually even more complicated in the modern fridges than they are from the older fridges. So that's a whole different topic and whatever. Okay, we're not going to go into it now. So anyway, so Abai Rabbi says it's psigresha, saying I really don't want this animal to die. Now you say, well, how do you know that? So the Gemara explains it. The guy would want this animal to linger on. He doesn't want it to die. In order that the tseva, the dye, will be clear. It will be a clear color. Otherwise, the moment the animal dies, then it begins to get cloudy, is what the pshat is.
When you take it out, it dies like as a consequence of you taking it out, right?
Right, that's right.
So
that's right. So they're talking about squeezing it out. You're thinking of squeezing out pus from a blister. Well, this is actually taking out a gland that is actually producing some kind of ink, some kind of precursor to the ink. Now, here's what we do know. We do know that in order for the ink to transfer into the color, it has to use an enzyme that's also in the gland, and the enzyme begins to break down fairly quickly the moment the animal dies. It's a very unstable compound, and so therefore, the longer the animal, the longer it is that the animal's dead, the less color, the less able you're going to get to a true blue. You'll get blue, but it won't be close to the personal. But so anyway, the answer is yes. But for some reason, the Gemara feels that you'd rather the animal does not die, and at any rate, therefore, it's only going to make you responsible, according to Rabbi Yehuda, for disha, for tzayid, and dash, and disha, and threshing, and not for shochet and netilas neshama. Okay, all right. Now let's go to the next piece of Gemara. Habashochto. So the next one after the list of catching of tzayid is shochto. So the question is, why is shochet chayev? So shochet mishomai chayev. So we just pretty much gave it away. Well, you think when the Gemara gives it away, it really gives it away, but it doesn't. So Rav Amar, so why are you chayev for shochet? So look what it says. Rav says mishum tzoveya. Rav says when you shech the animal, when you shech the deer, you're going to be chayev for coloring, or you'd probably call it discoloring, the skin around the area of where the animal was shechted. The blood will stain this the skin. Everybody's making faces like this. Doesn't sound like the worst thing that happened to deer.
No, I just didn't think of.
You never thought of that, but you'll see in a moment why the Gemara does think of that. Okay?
Did they use blood for dye?
No, but the skin gets colored. But in other words, so you're wondering why is it important that there be a red mark around where the animal was shechted, around the skin? The animal's dead.
Maybe it argues.
And the animal's not walking around without skin on. We know the animal's dead.
Maybe it's something you don't want. Maybe it's going to say like the other.
Well, maybe, but we'll leave you hanging for 30 seconds as the Gemara says. And Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says Mishum Natilas L'Shama. Shmuel says the more logical one, the more simple one. That's really because the animal, the animal's killed. You've killed the animal. That's the logical one. So the Gemara goes back and tries to go back to who is it? Rava.
shachto is because you killed it, yeah.
Shachto is because you've actually terminated life.
Right.
In other words, what doesn't mean really, so it doesn't really mean mishum mai. I'm chayev because of shochet. The Gemara is asking, what is the real value? What's the real purpose? How to identify the essence of what the Melacha is? Like, for example, we say disha is really separating.
Right.
So shechting is really for taking life.
Right.
You could say it's about incising. You could say it's about doing shechita and making the animal kosher.
Isn't an av Melacha, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is an av
It is not Melacha. It is. It's the next av Melacha right after tzayid.
So, but like you said, we're looking for the essence of what shechita
Right,
really is.
correct. So what is the key to shechita? What if you wanted to look therefore what are extensions of it? What would be toldos? What would be make it further removed? What would you build a drabanan about? You'd want to identify what is the real definitions. Remember, everything is about, not everything, but every malacha has a tachlis and a pula, has an act.
Right.
But the act of shechita is pretty good, okay? But it could be killing in a different way. It doesn't only have to be like that. You could strangle the animal. Or it could be, so one is the pu'ula and the other is the tachlis. What's the purpose? Okay? So the netilas neshama is a simple one. Right? The malacha is called shochet, but you kill the animal. You kill the life. And the other one, the tzovea, is a little more complicated. And the Gemara asks a question, mishum tzovea in, mishum netilas neshama lo. The first answer, which was Rav's answer, was that you chayv because of tzovea. What tzovea? That's it? Tzovea because you're discoloring or coloring the beis hashchita, the area of where the knife incised. And really, who cares? So the Gemara says, mishum tzovea in, mishum netilas neshama lo. So the Gemara says, no, ema af mishum tzovea. No, it's yuchayev according to Rav because of netilas neshama. That's the key value. Plus, it looks like it also has to have tzovea. It's not clear if it's also or and or, right? Maybe one or the other. So that's really the definition of what it was. Now, it's not clear if you study the building of the Mishkan that you get this idea that there's suddenly tzovea going on here. Tzovea looks like something you'd color, and that's what you were asking before, which has to do with dyes. Those were the first list. And the answer is you're right. But we're saying that there has a subsidiary piece of shechita that is also included within it. Now you're going to say, who really cares about why it would be tzovea? So Amar Rav. So Rav would said tzovea now has got to defend himself because you can imagine it looks kind of, I won't say foolish, but it looks kind of childish to kind of focus on tzovea when you're taking the tilas neshama. Amar Rav, milsa di amrei ema by milsa lo leisi dari basrai. I'm going to say something, or people are going to say something, and I'm going to say something that people shouldn't make fun. The people that come after me, dara basrai, v'lechochu alai, that people shouldn't make fun of me. I want to explain to you what I said, so when people come, the next generation, they read this Gemara, and everybody says, what? Rav said, Sovea? What was he thinking? So I'm going to tell you why. Sovea b'may nichale. Why does the person who kills the deer, or anything for that matter, kills any animal, really care about Sovea? So b'may nichale, nicha the late was beis hashchita dama. He wants that the beis hashchita, the slaughtering area, the area where the animal is slaughtered, should be covered with dam. Why? That people should see this as fresh blood. And people want to buy this. Sorry, I hope there are no vegans here.
Fresh blood.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
People will see the coloration on the base of shechita and know that this animal was recently fresh kill. It's fresh kill. Right, I'm not going to say the guy took it out of the freezer, or it's been. Remember, there were no freezers, so it's just been sitting and sitting and sitting.
Who knows?
So therefore, it's important because I guess the blood will dry and discolor and get deeper red and deeper brown and so forth and so on. That will be the first sign that this animal has been sitting for a couple of days. Okay, so therefore, it's in the interest of the shochet that this be visible when people buy it. Now, I'm not sure how that affects the skins. It seems to be more about the meat itself. I'm not really even quite sure if this really means the skins, therefore, will be fresher and they can be processed easier or whatever it is. But it means that as you get this, you see this is clearly a sign of something that is a fresh slaughtering. Okay, so right. Okay, so that's the answer about shochet. Okay. And that's pretty much as far as we're going to go with shochet. Any questions? So therefore, it looks like shochet has really two parts. One is netilas neshama, and Rav includes a secondary part of that, and because of tzviya.
And the netilas neshama would come from the fact that they did need skins and they had to kill animals to do it, right?
And say that again.
Why netilas neshama altogether would be an issue?
Because they had to kill the animal.
They had to get the skins.
Get the skins and the
Right.
skins. So
Okay.
right, the whole process of tzad and shochet is really about the process of preparing the skins and working with the skins because the skins covered the mishkan.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Right.
in theory, they could have let it die, but sure, yeah,
So
obviously.
they couldn't let it die.
Whatever it is, they wouldn't have. They would have slaughtered it. For sure.
They would have slaughtered it or they would have killed it. Once again, it does not have to be shchita.
Yeah, no, of course.
Right, and it happens to be that it probably was shchita. It's a very humane, more the humane way to kill than probably to knock it on the head somewhere. But that would include any time you kill an animal. Okay, so it,
When the Gemara says that Shochato Chayav Mishum Tzodaya,
yeah.
this means that Shochato is a tolda of Tzodaya.
It
Not
me-
not Melacha.
So it means what I believe it means according to Rav is that when you are shochet, you're also going to be chay. You'll be chay for shochet. And I believe, and I think Rashi is saying this. It appears to me that Rashi is saying this, that when you do shchita, you also chay as well for tzoveya. So even though this is not normally the tzoveya that existed in the Mishkan, which was processed from the dyes, but you're going to have therefore two av malachos, or one av and one atolda, that you will have when you do shchita, if you do shchita on Shabbos, or if you kill an animal on Shabbos. Now you could argue that there are probably some animals that you kill that may not cause tzoveya, right? Depends how you kill the animal. I don't know. For example, if you strangle the animal, there might not be tzoveya. But a normal shchita process, as we know it, and as it takes place in the packing house, would include therefore shchita, which is netilas neshama, and it looks like that he would have also another av malacha or tolda. Does that make sense? Okay. The other way to learn is that really it looks like there are two values in the shchita itself, and I think Rashi is saying what I just said a moment ago. Okay. So the next thing is we're going down the list onto the avos malachos. So after you kind of shech the animal and you kind of you catch the animal, you shech the animal, and you then you kind of you skin the animal. You are called what's called mafshito. You take the skin off the animal. Then it comes molcho and ma'abed oro. Molcho, you're salting the skin, and ma'abed oro is you're tanning the skin. So these two malachos, and you'll remember when we first learned it, I told you they're very, very similar. Or they're right. So the Gemara says va'molcho va'ma'abdo. So the Gemara says hayna moleach hayna ma'abed. It's the same thing. Moleach. Don't think of this as salting your food like you put salt on your chicken or something. It's very chemical salts. It's chemical salts. It's preserving it.
Like in modern Hebrew, you say herring is dag maleach or something.
Yeah, but the salting of the skins is much more than simply putting salt on herring. Dag maleach, by the way, that's what they did with herring. They put salt all over it.
Right. I'm just saying that's the word. This is modern Hebrew. The word. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but
Right.
there are scientists.
But,
Salt doesn't necessarily mean like table salt or other kind of salt.
Right, it's not even a salt. It's a chemical process.
I'm
Okay,
sorry. I'm
right.
sorry. Okay. You're saying
maybe in the tanning business they
it's
Right.
not salt. It's
These
other
are
kind of
pretty
salt.
awfully smelling kinds of places. What'd you say? Alkalines. Alkalines? Yeah. They are meant to kind of strip the skin, strip the soft tissue off, to kind of harden it up. So it's all kinds of chemical reactions are taking place, which of course give off all kinds of byproducts of gases and smells and all kinds of terrible things. So if you live near the tannery, it was really a bad place to live. And you find these so many towns, like you'll find there's Main Street, there's Mill Street, which is where the mill was, there's Tannery Road or Tannery Lane, because everybody knew where the tannery was. Okay, so
Summertime especially, I can tell.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Because on our street, when we had our business on SHABBAT Street, just down one street.
Was it packing house?
They used to, I guess, tan leather or do whatever, and if you ever walked by.
I remember that.
Oh, there you go. See, okay. So at any rate, so molech refers not to table salt, refers to serious alkaline salts. Okay, and ma'abed, that's what ma'abed is. I mean, it's the same thing. So the Gemara says hayna molech hayna ma'abed. So Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish Damar Tavayu apik chad minavi ayil sirtut. So they say take out one of this. Call this is really it's the same thing. right? And therefore, it's going to be moleach ma'abed, or ma'abed moleach is one of Melacha. And if you go down this list that I gave you a long time ago, so they have number 40 called Mesartate. Mesartate is scribing lines into the leather. That's the next part of the process. After the leather was processed, they kind of scribed lines so they could cut the leather into pieces. The outline, as opposed to it's not writing, it's scribing into the letter. Scoring. Is scribing a bad word? But maybe scoring is a better word.
Scoring's a better word.
Okay, thank you. So scoring the lines is correct. Scoring the lines into the leather as a preparation for how they would then cut it and into different pieces. Okay. And right, and I remember I told you this chart has got was a mistake here. One of these things, 30 and 31. One is supposed to be what's in place of mamachek. Mamachek you have twice.
No, but in the start date you had it said not including the 39.
So one should be mochem abdei mamachko. Mamachko machadcho. One should be machadcho. Number 31 is machadcho. Which is cutting. Right, it has in the English. The Hebrew is bad. Thank you. Okay. So at any rate, so the Gemara says, let's go back to our Gemara. So take out one of them. Va'ayal sirtut. Okay. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna. Now sometimes the extension of a Melacha is very different. Sometimes it's not. But we've seen now what is the real process of Molech Ma'abed. You are actually changing structurally the composition of this item, and you're actually making it harder. You're desiccating it, you're removing the moisture. That's clearly what's going on with the Molech Ma'abed. And you're also kind of making it and preserving it in such a way. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Arfuna says, Haiman the Molech Bisra, person who salts his meat, Chayev Misham Ma'abed. If you salt the meat on Shabbos, then you are Chayev because of Ma'abed. So that, who says that? Rabbi Bar Arfuna. Rava says, Rav Amar ain't ibud ba'ochlim. No, there's no kind of processing of skins that's not similar to putting salt onto meat. And the difference is the processing of skins is completely inedible. It's horrendously inedible. It smells so bad and it would taste even worse, right? As something, say something that you can't eat, they say it tastes like shoe leather, right? That's what it's supposed to mean. So Rava says no, the ochlim cannot really be considered for ibud. So whatever it's going to be, it's surely not going to be considered molech ma'abed. So Amravashi v'afilo Rabba bar Rav Huna lo amar. Even Rabba bar Rav Huna said that when you salt meat, it's going to be chai from ma'abed and moleach. He's only lo amar ela de kaboy leorcha. That's only if you're going to travel. You're packing the meat for the journey. So you're packing, like you pack smoked and cured meats. The meat is cured so you can take it with you, like beef jerky. Right, like beef jerky, like beef jerky. Or salami or something like that, where you've actually kind of worked at this and added chemicals to ensure the meat will actually last. Ava labita, for his house, lo mashvi inish michla eitz. People are not going to make their food into wood. You're not going, I know people like beef jerky and they like salami and all that, but really the kind of normal processing that you do with salting foods is really made to make it edible. It's meant to give taste. It's not really meant to change the structure of the food itself. Okay? So therefore, ma'abed for either ma'abed does not work for ochel at all, or if it does work for ochel, it's got to really be serious ibud, serious working to kind of make it into what we would call cured meats. Okay, so if you're making salami, yes. So you're making cold cuts, maybe, or something like that, but not normally the salting you do. Okay. Hamamachko v'hamachadcho. This is mamachko is about smoothing. So, and machadcho is cutting. So this comes up in the skins, mamachek, or mamachek, is you're actually smoothing out the skin itself. So for example, if you took off the hairs on the outside, that would be an example of mamachek, or just rubbing the skin down. So anytime that you want to rub something and smooth it, it doesn't only have to be skins, could be something else, right? So one of the things, for example, may come up, here's where an example does come up, for example, smearing things, is where actually would be a form of what we call mareach, would be a form really of mamachik. Okay, it's not the same, It's not like you're scraping hairs off. I don't mean the depilatory. I just mean anything where you're kind of trying to smooth something down.
Are women allowed to put on hand lotion?
Hand cream, hand
So if
lotion.
it's a loose hand lotion, yes. If it's a lotion, really, probably not. Okay, not on Shabbos.
Like a cream, you
Like
could.
right, like a
Like it was
cream,
thick,
like the thick creams, like the creams that you see. So the lotions that you are like I recall once being in a shul in Baltimore where they have the soap, the liquid soap. I think I told you this once. And and every time I'm there, it's diluted. You really got to be careful when you press it because it's like 3/4 water and one. Because what they want to make sure is that you're not going to do mamareach. Because what you do is you take the liquid soap and you're doing like that, and it probably could be a shaila. Probably not. Probably it's loose enough because it's not really a cream. But this is.
Is there using hand soap for just that reason? That it was b'mareh?
So it's probably not because it's probably still loose. Well, the question is, what happens if it's loose and you're really not smearing it? You're just putting it on. You're not really smoothing your skin, right? It's not really something that is a really solid kind of thing. So, for example, I'll tell you where it does come. Something solid like solid deodorant would be an example of mareach.
And doesn't this come up also with the shine of brushing the teeth?
Yes, it does.
They're using the toothpaste.
Right, correct.
Toothpaste,
Yes,
yeah.
toothpaste, or the bristles themselves, right? Okay, but that's probably a good reason you should brush your teeth. Okay, you can brush your teeth. You probably brush. Most places will say you brush your teeth, but you shouldn't use the toothpaste. You shouldn't put the toothpaste on. In other words, because putting the toothpaste, which is a cream, that is going to be mamarech on the brush itself, and that would be then putting on your teeth. But there's usually enough toothpaste from Thursday night still on the brush that'll work. Okay. But they do make. There is probably one of these companies, Adley, Frida, they make this liquid. Yes, they have it in Brooklyn too. They don't have to go to Israel.
It's the green kind.
Whatever it is. So that's it. But once again, the other alternative is not use any toothpaste, right? It's really not the brushing. It's not the brushing as much as the fact that you're smearing the paste onto your teeth, right?
That
That would be mareach. And actually, probably there probably is mareach because there is probably some kind of mild abrasive that they put into the toothpaste. It's a very mild abrasive, right? But you don't brush off your enamel, but it's been mild enough that they want to the action itself.
How
Yes.
about the bleeding?
About Yeshiva or something?
That means that you haven't been to the dentist long enough, and you're probably not eating the right things, not brushing. Okay?
Doesn't someone say it's okay to use toothpaste on Shabbos?
I'm sure.
Someone
No, I
must.
mean,
Someone
I
must
don't
say.
mean, I mean, like, in Israel,
Yeah, serious guy.
I'm
serious
sure,
guy,
yeah, serious guy.
I'm not talking some guy from the Reform movement, or something from maybe from
Take this out of the tape.
Catholic
Okay.
Church. I thought someone, like,
Probably.
What about
Okay.
these places where you have like for your hand sanitizer? That should be okay.
So the hand
Does it have to
sanitizer,
be-
because that actually
That's a
probably
health- that's a
evaporates.
health-
That's got alcohol in it, and mostly that actually seems to evaporate by itself. You're not really pushing it on. You're not really smearing it down. You sort of rub it, but
we
it's
just take the alcohol directly.
okay.
I think it's okay as a health question.
Right.
especially-
Okay. So anyway, so there's a couple of hard discussions here about simple discussions about how far this goes or what could be extensions of it. Amar Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina, Hashav Bein Hoamudim b'Shabbos Chai Mishum Mamachik. So Mamachik is what we're talking about, the smoothing. So there's two interpretations what actually this is. According to Rashi, this looks like this is some kind of there's some kind of not poles, but it looks like the outside of some kind of how would I describe it? Pillars, okay, and the outside of some kind of opening in a house that has pillars, and the person looks like they're rubbing down the base of this to that the floor goes up against the pillars themselves. That's what Rashi says. Tosfos quotes Rabbeinu Hananel, gives a much simpler interpretation. What it is, you're taking skin and you're actually taking a skin, that's your skin, a hide, and you're rubbing it against some kind of pillar to make it smooth. That's what Shaf Ben Amudim really refers to. Rashi is a bit more difficult to understand, but Tosfos doesn't like that because it doesn't seem to be exactly really rubbing it down, just more smoothing things there. So that's one example. Shaf ben Amudim b'Shabbos Chai Mishum Mamachik. Rav Chir bar Ava Gimel Dvarim Sachli Rav. I heard three things from Ravashi, from Sachli Ravashi, Mishmei Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Three of them, they all have to do, I think, with Shabbos, but one is really dealing with the issue here. Hamagare Roshe Klunsos b'Shabbos Chai Mishum Mechatech. This is, you have, it looks like boards or some kind of piece of wood, and they're tall beams, and you kind of are rubbing the bottom or the edge of the beams. They should all become smooth. So think of having a whole bunch of lumber, and you want to make them equal the same height. Each one, this one's a 1/4 inch longer, this one's, right? So what do? You take them and you rub them down, I think is what it means.
Plain.
You plane them down. You may be planing them on the ground, on stone, and so then you end up with them being straight. So this is mechatech, is cutting, right? Which is the other issue we just mentioned. Now it's not cutting with a saw. It's cutting by scraping it down, but it's the same sandpapering it, right? But that would be the same kind of thing. So mechatech does not need a blade anytime that you are simply cutting something down, in the same way that you would cut a skin or hide down to size. Okay, that was the first thing. So that's mishum mechatech. Hamamarech v'tia b'Shabbos chay mishum mamachik. If you smear on some kind of plaster or some kind of cream, what looks like on some kind of wounds, this is mamachik. This is, once again, this is smoothing down. And the last one, that's the topic of our discussion here. And the last one is hamasates is whoever b'Shabbos chay mishum makav patish. The masates means certain different things in different sugyas. Here it means you're actually finishing off the stone. Let me give you an example. If you look at Jerusalem stone, that's a perfect example. Jerusalem stone, after it's been cut from the quarry, they usually kind of finish it off even more. Now they finish it off in two different kinds of ways. One way is they have this, like, it's sculpted, right? It doesn't come out like sculpted. They have to sculpt it after they quarry it.
The outside face.
The outside face, right? And then sometimes it's actually flat, and they will make like it looks like the stones in the western wall, and they kind of scratch in like little grooves into the Jerusalem stone. So that's mesates, means the final parts of finishing off the stone. The stone has been quarried. The stone has even been it may even be settled down. It's not even clear if you do this before the stone is settled. You've squared off the stone, you've finished the stone, and now the final facing of the stone is what masates is. So now what malacha is that?
Chiseling.
Well, I know it's chiseling, but what malacha does it come under in the no, it's not mamachik. That's exactly the point. It's not mamachik. It's called makam apatish.
It's smoothing it.
Right, it's smoothing. So the rule is about makam apatish. Makam apatish is the final finished gemar malacha that you're doing, and specifically most of this comes about binyan. So the last thing that you're doing for binyan, that is a separate kind of malacha, is a finishing act. If you didn't do the finishing act, the job would be done. The stone is not going to fall apart. The stone has consistency. The stone is set. The stone is quarried. But you need to have the finishing touches. That's called makam apatish.
It's not like smoothing, like Jack said.
So the answer is, if in other contexts it could be smoothing, but because this is the very end of the malacha, it's not even necessary for this stone. So therefore it becomes makam apatish. Makam apatish is a very difficult malacha. It seems to be put into many places where they don't seem to know what the malacha is, and it's at the very end. And it's very hard to define makam apatish. But it always has to be at the end. That doesn't have to be the end of the final building. This is the end of the stone. The stone is then going to be inserted into a building in order to build up. There may be a final part of the building on the very top of the building, right? And it can't be something that is also a different malacha at the same time. You got to choose. You can't say it can't be a double whammy like you had before about shochet. You could get two, or throwing the clod of dirt at the palm tree. You get only makam apatish. There is, by the way, in terms of bona, you can have bona, and you can also have soser, take down a building to put up another building. There is no reverse of makam apatish. Makam apatish is the very end. What does makam apatish mean?
Final blow.
Final blow. And there are different ways the final blow can happen. I think some of them are here, right, in this chart that we once gave out, right? So this is so that's why you'll see they're a little different. Makam apatish could be the final blow that you give, the final knock of the nail into building a closet or into building a wall. The wall is standing. But after you kind of put the nails in, you kind of put you put that little set and you kick it in right under the surface. So that's going to be a makam apatish. That's one example. Another makam apatish is where you've got a stone, and the stone is cut out of the quarry, but the last knack has the actual stone separated. You've got it 99% done, right? And find timber. Well, not timber, right? Watch out below. So everything is done. You've done the stone, but this is the final completion. Or the other.
it could be, you said that it can't be something else.
Correct.
But if you just do the final smoothing, couldn't it be mamachek?
It could be. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be.
So therefore, it can't be makam patish.
So they decided it is makam patish. So this is actually because it really tends to focus more on bona, on binyan, whereas mamachek, excuse me, usually focuses more on something that's not binyan, like skins or and this is skins, right? For example, all the cases of mamachek that we're talking about with lotions is really this is skin. You're smoothing the skin down. So it could be both, and sometimes it's a real question why it's one and why it's not the other. I agree. That's why it makes makam patish very difficult. One other example of makam patish is when they were making the plating for the adonim, the poles, the standards. So they actually plated them with gold. So they had to bang down the gold to make it thin. And so I think we and you see it here is if you wanted to make sure the hammer didn't have any imperfections, because if it had an imperfection, it probably would deform the gold plating. So therefore, they kept banging the hammer onto the anvil by itself. So
Right. And the examples they gave all had to do with hammers and
right, correct.
different things with a
Like
hammer.
a patish, after
They
all.
really had a patish. I'm saying they really gave examples.
Correct. And you see, they all seem to have to deal with building. Now, some of them have to deal with building kalim, utensils. Some have to deal with building really binyan. Some attached things that are attached. But it's an extremely complicated melacha, and finding the difference between bona and between makam patish is a very large exercise the Gemara has in the 12th parak, which is called Parak Habona. Okay, so at any rate, this they've decided, then we're getting down to the end of the list, so this they've decided is going to be called makam patish. What was the example again? Masate Sisoev B'Shabbos, Chayim Shem makam patish. The Gemara is going to give you a few others. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Kisma, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Hatzar Tzura B'Kli. Okay, these are all going to be examples of makam patish. You've made now a utensil. You've built the silver pot, silver. What should we make it? Silver bowl. Okay, silver bowl. When the silver bowl is finished, you then inscribe some kind of picture onto it, or some kind of design. So the actual building of the pot or this bowl is bona, right? However you're going to do it may include also mavir. You've got to heat up fire and you've got to bend. But the end is, after all is said and done, then you build these squiggly stuff into the pot, into the bowl.
It's usually the last thing that's done.
Right, it's the last thing that's done. So what is it? So the answer is the bowl could stand by itself, but that's makam patish. So we're at the tzartzur b'kli. The next one is hamanapeach b'kli zechuchis. So this is actually very interesting. This is blowing glass. Okay, now what?
Glass blowing.
Glass blowing. So why is this not bona? Why is glass blowing not bona? I mean, go down to Corning, watch them blow glass.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a good question. Some achronim say it's really that to be bona, you actually be bona in the normal, natural ways. You put up bricks and you put up stones and you build something, or you kind of build.
It's not done with your hands.
Right, it's not done with your hands. The other suggestion that I think makes more sense to me is glass blowing. There are really two steps to glass blowing. One is you actually start with a piece of glass that's blown out a little bit. You start out with a hollow piece of glass, and then you blow it further. You don't just start with a solid piece. You start with a solid piece, but then you blow it into a little bit, and then most of the blowing is finishing off that little bit and blowing it out into different ways and patting it down and so forth. So you don't like it.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Archie's going to.
Blowing the actual
I'm just-
building or something, not a utensil.
You have to start with a blog.
Right.
We start with a
Isn't there a
blog.
whole
So
shot
that-
about binyan kalim? whether
Yes,
it's
there is.
binyan by kalim?
Correct, there is. There's this big shadow about binyan kalim. So that, but there's no shadow about makam patish and kalim. Okay, so there are three opinions about binyan b'kalim. One is that there is no binyan b'kalim. One is that everything is binyan b'kalim, and then there's a middle opinion. Okay, that's the Rambam. Okay, there's Rashi and the Rambam on either side, and Tosfos in the middle, which basically says that if you're actually making something real, that's solid, it's binyan b'kalim. Okay, it's something that's going to be temporary. And the Gemara talks about lul shel tarnagolim, and have to put an vent in a chicken coop. Talks about menorah shechulios, a menorah that you kind of was taken apart. You kind of pulled it apart, and the arms went limp. Or Mita Shel Tarsoim, these were coppersmiths who took their beds around with them. They were itinerant. And wherever they had to work on, I guess there wasn't that much copper to work on, so they schlepped this portable bed. When they set up shop, they put their bed together. Those may be something to put together and take apart. So that may be, according to Tosfos, what's not Binyan B'Kalim. That seems to be the more the logical approach. So there is and there isn't, but there's enough examples that it looks like there can be some kind of Binyan B'Kalim. Okay? So some of this is about Binyan B'Kalim, and some of this is really about Binyan B'Karka, and then as you see, there's really this whole part here about Makam B'Patish. But there's always Makam B'Patish, surely for Kalim. But the issue about blowing glass, it's a very different kind of building. Right? First of all, it's all one piece. At the time of Chazal, there was no one-piece building. You put up stones, you put one row of stones, another row of stones. You want to build something in wood, you got 4 pieces of wood, and you kind of screwed them. We didn't have screws. You knock them together. Correct. But I'm saying, but blowing glass is one piece, right? So, okay, no, so that's why that is called makkah. That's my makkah patish. And then the third one, how many are there? Tzartzur b'kli marafech b'kli schuchis chai mishamakah patish. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda. One or two more about Makam B'Patish. Haiman the Shokal Akupe Miglime Chai Mishamakam B'Patish. This is about if you have certain imperfections on your garment. The garment is finished, the garment is sewn, the garment is ready for sale. You buy it, and as you inspect it, you find there's some loose threads, right? Or there may be like some twigs or some matter that got underneath the weave, so you kind of take it out, or you see it's like sticking to it. For example, you don't normally see this in a store, but if, for example, you take your coat out in the fall when the leaves are blowing around, you find you got all kinds of leaves into it. Or you, like, for example, you walk in this snow and you get all kinds of, like, coat gets white stuff on it. So if you're buying the coat and you're trying to remove these kind of imperfections, that would be considered makam b'patish. So Haiman the shokal akifim miglimi. Rashi says, what's akifim miglimi? These were either extra threads that were sticking out, and then the other one is, it's not here, it's maybe later on where this is talked about. It's about different types of sticks or twigs that got stuck into the garment before it was sold. So that would be makam b'patish, provided provided you're really concerned about it. Right? If you don't really care that it has these threads sticking out, that's not makam b'patish, right? If you cut it off, it doesn't make a difference, or it's not, at least not a Melacha and not Torah. Okay, so far so good. And all of these take place in terms of the processing of the skins. In the Melachas come from the Beis Hamikdash, and makam b'patish is not really clear where it comes from. So the example seems that I gave you is not even in the Gemara. Rashi on the 12th parak says that this is one of the examples of makam b'patish in the Beis Hamikdash, where when they were working to flatten out the gold plating, they would pound on the plating, and after a while they would have to pound onto the anvil to make sure that the hammer that was smooth and wouldn't deform the plating. Okay. Next, kosev shtei osios. Okay, so now we finished off with the different skins. We're now up to writing. So you have to write 2 letters. And writing is very interesting because it has an opposite to it. There's writing and there's really erasing. Okay? Now, the erasing is fascinating, actually, because erasing, why would you erase something?
In order to write.
Well, writing usually
give you space to write.
Well, it appears to be that there was a mistake. Right, if you study, for example, where was there writing in the Beis Hamikdash, by the way?
You told us in the panels,
right,
numbers,
in the boards, and I also said that according to some Rishonim, it's also about keeping the cheshbonos in Pekudei. When they gave all the numbers, you couldn't do that in your head. Okay, so that's one other suggestion. But clearly, most of the people say it really has to do with the boards. The boards were stacked together. Not clear how they were numbered. Was it 1 and 2 or 1 and 1?
Right, like a sukkah, putting it together.
Well, we put 1 next to 1, you put 1 next to 2.
Good
okay,
question.
Right, and one of the reasons for numbering it was not only they match up, they should all match, is you didn't want to move around the order. The ones that were closer to the Aron HaKodesh needed to stay close to the Aron HaKodesh, ones that were further. You don't want to move them around. It's like kind of moving seats in the classroom, everybody gets excited.
That's the basis for it being 2.
Correct. Right.
Right, because one on each
Right,
board.
right. And therefore, that has a chashivus. So it's not just writing, it's chashivus. All I wanted to say about erasing is erasing, it appears to be in this case, was because they made a mistake.
And that's when we used to have erasers, was to
Right.
correct the mistake.
Everything, every time that they create something to write, they create something to erase. Right? There used to be the backspacing on the old typewriters. Remember the whiteout was whiteout. There was whiteout ribbons. Now you have it. You can do it in your computer. Every time you write, there's a way to undo what you did. No other Melacha has this kind of concept that's based upon making a mistake. You can knock down a house to build a new house, right? You can sew something up because the worm got a hold of it. Right, but really, it's very rare. There may be cases, a few others, where because of mistake. At any rate, so you have kosev, and then you have mochek amanas lichtov. Tan Rabbana, yes.
How about disappearing ink?
So would not be chayiv min Torah, correct? The question is, how quickly does it have to disappear? Does it have to disappear before Shabbos, or does it have to disappear within 24 hours, or even after 3 days? I forgot. I meant to look this up because someone asked me about this as well. Did we discuss this here? What did they do in Shari Tzedek? The disappearing ink is how quick does it disappear?
Well, then have to wait after Shabbos and photocopy it or something. Then after Shabbos it disappears.
Something. So, but how long does it have to wait to disappear? Does it have to disappear within 24 hours, or is it enough it disappears on Tuesday?
But it had to be till after Shabbos.
Yeah, they have to mark it down. Correct. I understand, but still not a full day.
It's a good way of writing a check.
There you go. Correct. Okay. So okay. The Rishalmi talks about this people who were very smart. They used to send in disappearing ink. They wanted to send messages to each other, so they would write in like you write in lemon juice,
onion juice or something.
right? And then they would subject it actually to not just heat. They would subject it to a different chemical, and the chemical reaction would make the ink appear, right? So maybe the second person is going to be chayiv on writing on Shabbos. He didn't write; he just made it appear. Doesn't really discuss, by the way, about the obligation of the first person who wrote in the ink that you couldn't see. It's interesting. Gemara talks about the second person.
He wrote it there.
You must be able to see
No,
it,
if
or else
you-
how could you write it? You must be able to see something, because how could you write it then?
It disappears. It disappears.
No, I know, but you must be able to
It
see a little.
stays for a split second.
It then
while
dries out.
it
Dries out and it's
so you can
gone.
see whether you would
Okay.
see-
Anyways, a kosev shtei osios. Okay. I'm not rushing, but I do want to really get to the
Fine,
mission.
fine, fine, fine.
Okay. Now we'll finish it next week. Tan Rabbanan. Kosev osachas gedola. You wrote a very big letter, a big font, 72-point font. You wrote normally like in 20-point font or 15 or 14-point font, you can write 2 letters. So potter, you're potter because you have to create the chashivas of 2 osios. Okay, Gemara has a whole discussion. What if you write what's called shem mishimon? If you wrote shame, you wanted to write Shimon, but you only wrote shame, so you wrote 2 letters. Right? What if you write 2 letters that mean nothing? Like what if you write Aleph Aleph? That's a discussion in the Gemara. There are many 2-letter words. Gog, right?
Right, sure.
Dad, Sus, right? So there's enough double letters, but Aleph Aleph means nothing. What happens if you write 2 abbreviations? What if you write 2 asterisks? So that's because then, according to the Gemara later on, not in this parak, it's actually also a 12th parak. It's even for Roshem. You write 2 symbols that mean something, you would be chayav. Okay,
Because there's no 1-letter words. There's only 2-letter words.
Yes.
correct. But what if you write 2 letters that aren't a word? I mean, 1 and 2 are not words either. 1 and 2, right on the numbers. The numbers have a meaning. There's significance. There's no word when you put 1 and 2 together. You don't read a 12. You might put 1 and 2. That's right. Okay.
Right.
So in case you wrote a bit, it's not important here. Size does not matter, so to speak, right? So kasav os gachas gedola v'yesh mekom l'chol shtayim pater. Machak os gedola v'yesh mekom l'chol shtayim chayiv. If you erased 1 letter, but there's a big letter, but there's place to write 2, you're chayiv. Why? This is fascinating because erasing is really only chayiv in order to write. So if you have freed up the space to write 2 letters, you're actually chayiv even though you erased 1. It's a very interesting halacha. Writing 1 big letter is not chayiv. Erasing a big letter that leaves you room for 2 smaller letters. Now I'm not quite sure how small is small. Right? Small can be pretty small. Right? You guys can write. Sometimes you're going to write in a 6-point font when you're handwriting, but that's also kosev, I guess.
We write on like a grain of rice.
I guess the concept was, even though you didn't write the two, you're still chayav.
Right, it's mochik the place. And Amar of Tanchum Rabbi Yossi ze chomer b'mochik mi b'kosiv. This is a chomer about mochik that you're going to be chayav for erasing one, and with kosiv you have to write two. But if you erase one to leave room for two, it's good. It's going to be chayav. Okay, now we're going to come back. We backtrack into Makabah Patish. So the last malachas are Bona and Soser, Mechabe, Mavir, Makabah Patish. Bona is building, Soser is knocking down in order to build, Mechabe is putting out, Mavir is lighting the fire, Makabah Patish is the final malacha that there is. Actually, the last final malacha is Motzi Rishus L'Shus, which is not listed here in the discussions, because that's the first parak we did. Rabba Rav Zera Damar Tavar Kol Mideh de Isbe Gemar Malacha Chai Mishum Makabah Patish. So here you see, previously we had the examples. We have a rule here put down. What is the defining factor of Makabah Patish? It's Gemar Melacha. Now it's Gemar Melacha that's a separate standalone. It has to be a separate standalone. In other words, I may just finish building a building without having necessarily Makabah Patish. Or if I make a pot. If I make a pot, we did about two amudim ago. We talked about there were cases where there was 7, 8, and 11 or 13 averos. You remember this? Making a pot, making an oven, making a kaveris, which was like an upside down beehive out of reeds. So you may remember making the kli cheres didn't have makabah patish. Making the oven, after you made the oven, you kind of smooth something on the outside, like an insulating factor to keep the heat in. That was a makabah patish. So it's got to be something separate that finishes off the malacha. Once again, I told you the difference between bone and makabah patish is sometimes a little fuzzy. So that is all. Anything that has Gemar Melacha that is defined as Gemar Melacha is going to be Makabah Patish. Elo Avos Melachos. So the end of the Mishnah said these are the Avos Melachos, the 39. Elo Lafukim in Rav Elazar, the Mechayev Atolda Makamov. This excludes the very unusual opinion of Rav Elazar that says you can be Mechayev doing for an Alv and a Tolda, you're Chayev 2 Melachos. Right? So this excludes me to say it's not true. You're only going to be chayav 1. Chaser achas, and there's 40 minus 1, 39. So what does this all come to exclude as well? Lafuke mid Rav Yehuda. So there are other minority opinions of which one is mentioned here, how to add more malachos into it. We have 39, and Rabbi Yehuda seemed to have added 2 more. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, most of us are shovet via medakdek. Okay, this is a little more complicated. What shovet? Shovet is, it's what? A scepter? Shavet, correct. Okay, that's maybe a different word. This actually is something very specific about in weaving, where you have the shesi, you have the vertical threads. So this was some kind of, maybe a long pole, like a shavet, right, that you wanted to make sure that the threads stayed separate. So you kind of had to pat them down to make sure they remain separate. Otherwise, they may kind of twist over. Then your whole weave kind of goes crazy.
Like a big comb or something.
Like a big comb, correct. Like a big comb to keep them separate. So the shovet was some kind of big comb. Mashvas shesi bekarka shokorim reel, which is like a comb. So this is what this. So he said that was a separate part of the weaving process, and he included this as a separate malacha. Medakdek. Medakdek is referring to the other part of the weave, which is the erev, which is the warp, the woof, or the weft, whatever they call it, which is sideways. You're putting it back and forth. So as you're kind of throwing the shuttle back and forth, in and out, you have to make sure that it would actually be straight. Now, you have to make sure it was tight. If you made it too tight, so it would just kind of pucker up as well. You make it cross back tight. What if you made it too tight? Like it's like taking. What happens when you take a rope and you make it too right? It becomes stretches too thin. So therefore, every once in a while, you had to kind of straighten it out and make sure that you put enough slack in to make it tight. Make sure that there was still slack in the shuttlecock going back and forth. So that is called medakdek. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda included 2 more in the complex processing of oreg. Amrulo. So they said back to him, no, those aren't really separate malachas. They're really included in what the different parts of the malacha are, which is, the first part of the malacha was mesach, which is threading the loom. So they said, medakdek, shovet, harei b'chlal mesach. That's in threading the loom. That's just a different part to make sure once you thread the loom, they don't get mixed up together. Medakdek, when you're kind of making sure the shuttle it doesn't get too thin, that's just part of the actual weaving itself. So they're saying there, you don't have to count them separate. They're simply variations or alternate types of avos on the malachos of weaving themselves. So therefore, the bottom line is, there are 39 malachas, except for Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is not accepted. That brings us up to the Mishnah. So next week, we're going to spend a little time talking about the chalazon and talking about sad, and then I think that we'll cover most of the year, and we'll see if we have to how we'll finish off the rest of the time. So we are meeting next week for those who walked in after if we started. I'm then away for 3 weeks.
Three following Mondays.
3 following Mondays. I'll send you a reminder, but be here this coming week, okay?
Yes.